All right, guys. So one lesson we must all learn in life is never go full woke. Okay, never go full woke. Like Trevor Noah is gonna go full woke when it comes to this conversation with transgender cyclist athlete and activist Veronica Ivy, who became the first transgender woman to become a champion in women's cycling back in 2017, 2018 in the women's division age 35 through 44. Okay, and this guy right here is not only going to go full woke, but he's also going to simp over this transgender woman in this conversation that he's going to have with this person about whether or not trans people, right, should be allowed to compete against people of the opposite biological sex. And people like Trevor Noah disappoint me a lot because I know that he was raised better, right? I know he was raised in a place like South Africa, the African continent, that at least knows what a woman is and is not down for a lot of this stuff.
Saying we have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man.
What if it's a woman with a penis?
Both.
Is that people are laughing? Is that a dumb question?
However, because again, he's trying to make money, right? And he's a part of the woke mainstream liberal media, he has to parrot a narrative that he knows is not grounded in reality. And it's really sad, but I want to talk about it. So I want to go ahead and play this clip of him having this conversation, the discussion with transgender activist / athlete Veronica Ivy. Let's get into it.
Veronica Ivy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to say from the top, because I've noticed this happens in every conversation. Every time you bring up trans rights, or if you have a discussion and you say trans, people tense up. I understand why. We live in a world where now there are people who are so transphobic that it makes it almost impossible for people who aren't to ask any questions, to have any conversations, to have any discourse that doesn't lump them in with transphobia. And so I'm really glad that you're joining us on the show to talk about this.
Wow. Wow. So this guy basically started off the conversation by saying that anybody who disagrees with the narrative that biological men can compete against biological women in sports, and that is fair, is transphobic, right? That is what he's saying in a nutshell, okay? Because that is a majority of the backlash when it comes to transgender athletes in sports. It's this idea that biological men or women really can compete against those of the opposite biological sex. That is a majority of the conversation, okay? And he's saying that that makes you transphobic, which means that people like him can't ask questions, which, in my opinion, I'm like, well, what questions do you have, Trevor? I guarantee you that the question that this man has is the same questions that the people that he's deeming to be transphobic has, which is that, why do you think that it's fair for a biological man to compete against a biological woman, right, in sports? I guarantee you that's the real question that this man has, okay? But no. If you're not on the left and you are basically trying to adhere to basic biology, okay, and truth, then you are a transphobe, right? And that's what really frustrates me about people like Trevor Noah. He sets the tone of the conversation to basically say that anybody that disagrees with the liberal narrative on this conversation is a transphobe. But it's like, no, it's not grounded in transphobia. Trans people are free to compete among people of their own biological sex. I have no problems with that whatsoever. I don't want to ban them from that. I don't want to keep them from doing that. I don't want to do any of that. Feel free. If you identify as a woman, right? If you're a trans woman, compete against biological men. Do it, right? It is what it is, okay? I don't care. But I do care when it comes to you trying to compete against somebody of the opposite sex. Again, either way, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you try to compete against somebody of the opposite sex, especially in contact sports, I have a problem. I have an issue with that because it's fundamentally unfair. It doesn't make me transphobic.
Because it feels like one of the biggest issues in America, and yet no one can seem to talk about it. So let's start with...
No, we can't talk about it. The only reason you feel like you can't talk about it is because the people that do talk about this issue from a real perspective, from a perspective of truth, they get shunned as transphobic, right? They get shunned as transphobic. Those are the only people in this country that can't talk about this issue. Everybody else that is talking about this issue, that is defending trans rights, right? They're free to say whatever. And they don't have to worry about any backlash whatsoever. They don't have to worry about being canceled. They don't have to worry about losing their jobs. They don't have to worry about any of that.
Your journey. You've competed at some of the highest levels in sport. And, you know, as your hoodie says, sport is a human right. That is what you believe in.
Yeah, nobody's trying to ban trans people from competing in sport, right? So what you're saying, I don't disagree with. I think sport is a human right. Again, what this person is trying to imply here is that people are keeping trans people from competing in sports, and that's not true. Nobody's calling for trans people to be banned from competing in sports. And that's what really frustrates me about the leftists and their narrative when it comes to this issue. Anytime the GOP passes a bill that protects women's rights in sports, they say, oh, you're trying to ban trans athletes from competing. And that's not true whatsoever. Trans athletes are free to compete with people, right, among their own biological sex. But for whatever reason, making a trans person compete against somebody of their own biological sex, that's banning them from sport. They can't compete in sport at all. Ridiculous.
Talk me through just a little bit of why you believe fighting for transgender athletes to compete in the categories they'd like to in sport is so important.
So it's a fundamental tenet of like the Olympic movement that sport is a human right. So in their Olympic charter, in their fourth fundamental principle of Olympism, they say participation in sport is a human right, and they mean that at the competitive level.
Again, nobody's keeping you from participating. We're just saying you can't participate unfairly, where you have a significant biological advantage, okay? Most men, right? Most men have a significant biological advantage over women when it comes to sport. That is what people are saying, okay? Nobody's trying to ban you from being able to compete among sports. I'm so sick and tired of these people saying that. Okay, they're shifting the conversation away from what it actually really is about, which is whether or not it is fair for people of different sexes to compete against each other in sport. That is what the question is, okay? And they deflect from that when they say, well, you're just trying to ban us from competing in sports in general, and that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm. So this issue, people like to say that it's a complicated issue, and I don't actually think it is. I think it's very simple.
No, you're right. It is a very simple issue. Biological boys or men, males, compete against biological males. Biological females, girls, women compete against biological females, girls, and women. It's very simple.
It all boils down to, do you actually think that trans women and intersex women are real women?
No, right? No. And because of that, again, it's simple. Because you're not a real woman, you're not a biological woman, you need to compete amongst men, right? Very simple.
And are really female or not? And if
by definition, you're not female, okay? Because again, see, this is what blows my mind about these leftists. They want to get on conservatives who mix gender and sex and say that gender and sex is the same thing, but say no, gender and sex are not the same thing. But then they'll turn around in their own rhetoric and say no, trans women are actually real women, right? Implying that they're actually female, which the word female and male refers to sex. The word man and woman refers to gender, okay? That is how it's supposed to be. The right says that both of them are the same. The left says that they're both separate, okay? But again, the left, what they try to do is that it's the classic give them an inch, they take a whole mile thing, where they'll say, well, no, trans women are actually real women, implying that they're actually female. Only people that are actually real women are females, okay, that are biologically woman, right? They have a vagina, XX chromosome, you know how it goes, right? But again, these people want to be categorized as female. They want to say, no, I am a real 100% biological woman. That is what they want. And what is really disingenuous and frustrating from this person right here is that they're trying to mix intersex and trans people together as if they're the same, and it's not the same. Intersex people are a very, very, very rare genetic anomaly, okay, in which you have people that are, born with, like, I don't know, a vagina, but they don't have, like, ovaries or uterus or whatever. Like, there's some genetic anomalies going on there, right? We're not talking about that, right? Nobody's talking about that, okay? We got to let the medical doctors and themselves, to a certain extent, sort that out, okay? We're talking about people that were born normal. We're talking about men that were born with XY chromosomes and a penis, okay? Or women that was born XX chromosome in a vagina. I'm talking about a fully functional genitalia with the right chromosomes. That is what we're talking about. We're not talking about intersex people, and throwing them into this conversation is very disingenuous because trans people and intersex are not the same.
It's very simple. Just stop policing who counts as a real woman, because this has had history of racism built into it over the years.
The race card.
It's not an accident that the intersex athletes who get singled out are women of color from the global south, because who gets singled out for scrutiny is based on white women's conceptions of femininity. And that's being weaponized against trans people too. So it's a fear of protecting the fragile, weak, cis white woman.
So I want y'all to understand, this white male, right? This white male is pulling the race card and attacking cis white women in an effort to defend why biological males should be able to compete against biological women in sports unfairly, right? Again, it blows my mind, the argument that this person is making here, okay? This is a white male, right? I'm not even misgendering them because I'm using terms referring to sex, which this is a biological fact. This is a white male. A white male is trying to pull the race card to criticize anybody who goes after them, okay? Again, it blows my mind. This isn't mansplaining. I don't know what is, bro. You're telling white women, hey, don't speak on this issue. You don't have a say in regards to what a real woman is, okay? And again, if you say anything about it, then it's grounded in racism, right? It's grounded in racism. Again, blows my mind.
From the rest of us.
Yeah. So, Trevor Noah, who, again, in my opinion here, is simping hard, right? Because he's not asking the right question. He's teeing up the conversation already in the court of this transgender athlete, trying to validate their worldview, which is just simply false. Again, I hate to see this in mainstream liberal media, man. Again, and this is why people like him are so sad to me, because it's like, bro, I know you don't believe this. I know you was raised better than this, bro. I know you was raised in a part of the world where they don't buy into this stuff at all. But hey, it is what it is. I just found this to be super cringe. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.